Washington turning up the heat on New Delhi yet again. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned that America could slap even higher tariffs on India if President Donald Trump's peace talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska fail this Friday. The warning comes on top of Donald Trump's already announced 50% tariff rate, a combination of a 25% penalty for buying Russian oil and weapons, and the existing 25% duty. Now, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Bloomberg TV the move is linked to India's continued imports of cheap Russian crude, which now make up nearly 40% of its oil supply, a sharp jump from just 3% before the Ukraine war. Senior Executive Editor Aditya Rajkol joining us here on the broadcast. Aditya, how do we look at these developments? This seems to be like a double cornering tactic. You want to meet the Russian president in Alaska, offer him a mines and minerals deal, and if that doesn't happen, well, India is going to pay the brunt. How does this really happen? And isn't this pushing Donald Trump in a corner himself?
Well, certainly, Kabir, it doesn't really make sense that while Trump has already announced that there will be a summit between the Russian President Putin and Trump in Alaska, and it will be around 1 p.m. on Saturday, then why exactly are these threats being made against India? It does seem that US President Donald Trump has been told by his advisors that if they rub India the wrong way, then certainly talks could work out with Russia. That is the only plausible theory that is coming across right now, because already 25% tariffs have been slapped against India, and there's been an additional 25% penalty as well. And now they are saying, Steve Bessent, in fact, going on to say that the entire tariff or the penalties could go even further if there isn't any kind of a solution, a resolution or a peace deal, or Russia agrees to end the war with Ukraine after 3 long years. So I don't know how India comes to the picture here, because India from the very beginning had said that this is not an era of war. We believe in diplomacy and dialogue. We do not believe in joining one axis against the other. Prime Minister Modi was one of the only leaders who visited both Moscow as well as Ukraine. He has good ties both with Putin as well as Zelensky, and recently he has had phone call with both Putin and Zelensky, trying to again push for normalcy, end of the war, and peace and diplomacy. But it does seem that the White House had made up its mind and doesn't want to only push tariffs against India, but build a robust tie-up with India's adversary Pakistan, which has been encouraging terrorism in the entire region. So they have started a counter-terrorism dialogue with Pakistan, and at the same time it does seem that there will be a defense deal that could be in the pipeline with Pakistan. And apart from wining, dining with the Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir and holding strategic dialogue. So clearly the case in point here is that US is willing to compromise on the decades-old relationship with India, India being a very close ally. There's a global strategic partnership between New Delhi and Washington, D.C., and it does seem that Trump has made up its mind. He doesn't want to resolve the crisis, but wants to deepen the crisis at this particular stage, and everything seems to be attached with the Russian peace deal, whether that happens in Alaska or not.
Another braggadocio attempt by the US president here, Aditya, to grab the headlines, and the United States has double standards, quite rich, coming from the US president himself and his entire Republican administration. But take a look at this. Delhi has time and again insisted that it must buy the lowest price crude to shield millions of poor Indians from rising energy costs. And the backs are not against the wall, Aditya. Everybody's talking to each other constantly. I'm thinking, isn't this and all of these statements bringing the BRICS grouping more together? Isn't this going to be the glue for the BRICS grouping now?
It's important to understand here, Kabir, that from the very beginning, the United States had said publicly, even the ambassador, the former ambassador of US to India, Eric Garcetti, had very much said that they understand, and they in fact encourage India to buy the cheap Russian crude oil and then sell it off. So the question right now is that when US or the West was encouraging India to do the same thing, they understood India's national position only in favor of the people of India, then why exactly this complete U-turn now? And of course, India is growing closer to both China as well as Russia after the recent diplomatic standoff between India and United States. You see Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting Xi Jinping. He will be there at the SCO summit that will be happening in China on the 31st of August and the 1st September. We also see that next week for the Indian External Affairs Minister Jaishankar would be visiting Russia. Apart from meeting his counterpart Lavrov, he will be holding and calling on the Russian president. You remember that only last week NSA Ajit Doval was also in Russia, and we do expect that the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi will also be visiting New Delhi next week to hold boundary dialogue with NSA Ajit Doval. So a lot of hectic diplomacy at play here between New Delhi, Moscow and Beijing, and no guesses here that Washington DC is certainly pushing India, Russia and China to come together for BRICS to in fact flourish. And in fact, we had the statement from the Brazilian president recently, just a few hours ago, where he said that he would be calling a BRICS summit very soon online, where they would be discussing the consequences and the response to the new tariffs put in by Donald Trump.